Hello everybody, welcome back for another episode here on the SMP. In the last episode, we finished all our red mangrove trees, which means it's time to move on to a different type of mangrove tree for our little swamp here, which is why, in the intro, we restocked a few items that we're going to need. Mostly leaves, which we have a bunch of, but also a couple roots as well, which we're going to need. In the episode before that, we kind of gathered a bunch of wood, so we have plenty of resources to get started here. So what exactly are we going to be building? Well, like I said, we finished all the red mangrove trees, which are these kinds that are out here. In mangrove swamps, at least in the United States, red mangrove trees are the kind that grow furthest out into the water, kind of approach the shoreline, but kind of stay within the tidal waters and everything like that. So we only have a couple here in this swamp that are the furthest out here. As you can see, as we kind of go inland, there's no trees yet, but we're going to build some more trees a little bit further inland in this episode. So what kind of trees are those going to be? Well, they're still going to be mangrove trees, because really mangrove trees are the only kind of trees that are adapted to this kind of environment, the mangrove swamp. But they're a different kind of mangrove trees. While red mangroves have prop roots that hold them up above the water, which allow them to grow further out into the ocean, there's a different kind of mangrove, the black mangrove, that lives a little bit further inland on a little bit higher ground. And that mangrove is the kind we're going to build today. Like I said, it doesn't have prop roots. It has a different kind of root structure called pneumatophores, which we don't really have an equivalent to in Minecraft like we do with prop roots. We have kind of mangrove roots like that, which can kind of serve as prop roots. But we do have other things that I think will look close enough, like fence post, which will kind of look like pneumatophores. They kind of just stick up out of the ground like that. But I think we can also mix in mangrove roots as just kind of like single blocks on their own, because they kind of have vertical pillars, as well as they're not really connected on the top too much. But I think while mixing these together, we do have to kind of be careful that they don't connect, because like you have that kind of thing going on with fence post. If you put a mangrove root next to it, it kind of connects like that. And I don't want horizontal lines, I just want straight vertical ones. So we're going to need a couple different blocks here. I think buttons will also kind of work good. And again, here I have muddy mangrove roots. I think that will work too. That's kind of like just a little texture on the top here. But we'll need all this stuff and probably a bit more of a couple different things to get started here. But we'll kind of craft that all on the fly. Let's pick out the spot for the first one, and I think we'll start maybe right here. Alright, so I don't really know how to start this. If you guys have seen my stuff before, I kind of like to do everything kind of on the fly, freehand, kind of not really having any real plans. But I have an idea. So I guess for this tree, I think the best way to start it might just be to start with a trunk and maybe build a couple of roots. They're sticking out a little bit to support the tree. I think we need a little that going on there. And then from there, I want to maybe build out kind of root structures that seem to be coming out from a tree in the mud. Alright, I think that's a good place to start. Maybe add a couple more here. And we'll kind of worry about texturing and blending into the dirt at some later stage in the building process. But for now, we're just worried mostly about the muddy parts. Kind of getting these trees in place. Alright, I think the next part we should do here is kind of try to add in some of these things going on. And I have only one button, I'm gonna need to craft more. Alright, we have a couple more. We'll add in at least a couple dotted around here. Oh, not right there. Runs into a block right there, so we'll need a couple more. I want them to kind of be dotted around the trunk. I want them kind of all over the place too. So we'll have one right there. I actually liked it better right there. Alright. Add in a couple buttons too. It blends in a little bit. I think I like that. I would wonder if we can add in a couple of these roots as well. I think that might just about work. I think in a future tree, we might try to add in a little bit more than we got going on here. But I think this is a good start. Alright, I think I like this, so I think the next step is to do the branches. Now, with all these mangrove trees that I've already done, anything kind of worked out and seemed to look good, which is kind of strange for trees. Usually with branches, you kind of only can do a couple of shapes that look really nice, but we ended up doing quite a few different patterns and stuff. One of the weirdest trees is over here, which kind of looks weird from this angle, but if you look at it from some other sides and try to look through the leaves, you can kind of see that it's kind of like a Y-shaped tree. That just doesn't usually work with trees in Minecraft, especially at this scale, but it kind of works with these because they kind of can be any shape and still look good. Because I guess they're just that kind of tree. I don't know, but it worked out, and I think we can kind of apply the same rule to the black mangroves, but I do want the shape to be a little bit different, almost intelligibly different, just slightly like less wide and a little bit more tall, so that we have a little bit less of an oblong shape and a little bit more of a spherical or dome-like shape. Not quite to the point to where it looks like symmetrical and weird. I still want it to look natural and a little bit noisy and wild looking, but I think just a little bit of a difference in the leaves will help kind of separate the different trees into a little bit more identifiable separate species. I guess to do this, we'll need mostly stairs and slabs, at least for the lower branches, because they need to be a little bit thicker than the ones further up, because they're a little bit older. I think what we'll do is, especially at the bottom, try to make pretty long branches like that. And then as we get up, we'll try to make them a little bit shorter, I don't know, a little bit thinner. Kind of add in fence post, which I think you can kind of see up there. We have a little bit of fence post coming up on the top there. So let's keep doing some of these branches, and it should be kind of one of the easier parts of this build. Something we also have to keep in mind is we want our horse, or actually our mule, to be able to come through here, kind of walk over these lily pads so that it can get around to that nether portal that's over there. You can kind of see it through the trees. We want to be able to do that, but we kind of want low hanging branches at the same time, so we kind of have to ride that balance, kind of keep things a little bit high up so that the horse can at least get through this part right here. Alright, we're finished with all the branches. You can kind of see that we added a few here. There's some little details that you might notice, like if you put branches kind of more forward or backward, they kind of curve in a little bit of direction, or at least they look like they're curved, even though they're on the same Y value. The one in front is going to look a little bit higher up than the one behind it, which is kind of cool, little detail to add, but it's kind of unnecessary because once you add leaves, it kind of gets all covered up. Um, which you can kind of see from the tree over here. You don't really see the branches too much. Alright, well, we're moving on to fence post. I think we should be ready to just kind of put them on here. There's not really much of a pattern you have to remember, but make sure that the ends of your branches end on top slab so that the fence posts are connected. If you put them on bottom slab like that, then they float, and you don't want that. So remember to put them on top slab. There's really nothing else to add here. It kind of is just whatever you want to do with the fence post. Just put them on there. It'll work out. Most of it will get covered up by leaves anyway. And we're done with the fence post. You can kind of see that the shape is kind of that shape that we wanted. Is kind of curved like that. It all looks good from a distance. You kind of want to keep a nice silhouette going. Really, everything else doesn't matter too much about the shape of the individual fence post or anything like that. But the general shape is there. That's really what we're after. But it's pretty much time to move on to leaves. You really don't need too many. You just need like 3 stacks or so. But that might be too many. I usually get a tree done in under 3 stacks. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. For all the leaves, you pretty much just want to cover the fence post with leaves at this point. We'll work on the finer details of the shape at a later time, but just kind of cover the fence post first, and then we'll work out the rest later. Alright, the general leaf shape is done, and we're pretty much good here. There's not too much I want to change, but you can see in certain spots we kind of have a staircase kind of shape happening, and other spots we kind of have flat little like spots of leaves that look a little weird. So we're going to basically just break or place leaves wherever we think looks good, and we'll do this kind of all over the tree. Wherever we think we need or don't need leaves, we just kind of go back over all this. Well, we're pretty much finished here. I think this is turned out pretty well, I think. There's a couple of things we have left to do though, which is pretty much just details. You can see we have some vines and stuff growing on these other trees. We're going to be doing that here as well. So I think they're in this barrel. Yeah. We have some vines. We might add a couple of lily pads and some seagrass into this water as well. We won't be doing, I don't think, anything other than that just yet, but eventually we might have some grass and stuff down around here. But yeah, let's just put some vines on this. For this part though, it is kind of hard to tell where you want the vines because they kind of just grow down, and it's kind of hard to tell exactly where they're going to end up and stuff. Of course, we do have string to kind of limit how much it does grow, but it can kind of just be hard to tell where you want to put that first vine. And this is the final version of the first black mangrove tree. That's, yeah, first final tree. First finished tree. That's a better word. Finished. First finished black mangrove tree. uh, as you can see, we kind of waited around a little bit so that the vines can grow down pretty much as far as we want them to. I did add a little bit more string so that some of them don't go all the way to the ground. But yeah, this is our first black mangrove tree. It pretty much looks the same from a distance as the rest of the mangrove trees, but I really think that these little like things sticking out look mostly like new metaphors. New metaphors are a little bit smaller in real life, and they're also a lot more densely packed, which we really can't do too much in Minecraft. But I think it looks close enough that it kind of sells the idea of, yeah, that looks like a black mangrove. So let's add more. Though maybe not of the same size. This one's pretty big. It's going to be about the size that I want most of them to be, but I want a couple little tiny ones dotted around. And I think right here, in this kind of area, right next to this path, there should be just a little tiny black mangrove just like hanging out right here. So let's get some fence post, maybe some other stuff as well, like those roots, and we'll probably need more than 5, but let's make a little mangrove tree right here. Alright, so I think this method should pretty much be the same, it's just on a little bit of a smaller scale. So we'll start with the trunk, and then kind of add a couple of roots down here. Don't really want too many though, so we'll just have kind of a little root system like that. I think that works. And then I'll add in a little bit of this kind of thing going on. Maybe add some buttons in. I think that should be good enough. And then we'll add in just a couple of fence posts around here. And once again, kind of anything goes. They'll mostly get covered up by leaves, so we don't have to really worry about it. And then, of course, leaves. Alright, we're now on to the phase where we have to kind of detail the leaves a little bit better. And on this kind of smaller scale, it's a little bit harder to do these kind of details because each leaf block is a lot more of the tree than it is over here. Even things like the new metaphors are pretty hard to detail as well because they kind of look out of scale here. They look kind of big, right? But we should be able to still do this pretty easily. I've done it quite often before, so you kind of just add what you think will work, and if it doesn't work, do something else. It's pretty much how you do trees. Alright, I think that's pretty much how I want the leaves to look. We didn't really actually change too much, just a couple of blocks were moved around, because it was really pretty good to start out with. There was just a couple things that I wanted to change. Alright, so now it's time for details, so like vines and some, well, we would add some lily pads if we hadn't already added some in this area, so we'll just add some vines and probably call it after that. But we won't need as many on this tree as we will on the big ones. You can kind of see on these little ones that you only need a couple of little vines here, there. You don't really need a whole big tree's worth of vines. So we'll just add a couple, maybe one here and one on the other corner, like right here. And that should work out pretty well. And here is the little one, the little black mangrove, all finished. We got all the vines kind of grown up and everything like that. I'm not entirely sure about the size of the new metaphors here. They kind of look a little bit out of place, almost like prop roots, especially at a distance. So I might swap those out for something. I just don't really know what just yet. Maybe buttons, just have buttons instead of fence posts. I'm not really sure. We'll do something about that if I can, think of something. But I think really the black mangrove roots here ended up looking quite a bit better than I thought they were going to. With the red mangroves, I knew it was going to look cool. I had a good idea in my head of how it was going to look, and I had it all planned out. With these, I just didn't know, but I think it ended up looking pretty cool. We have another kind of mangrove that we're eventually going to add in a future episode that I don't have any idea of how to pull off in a way that makes it look like what it should be. So we're going to definitely wait on that. We definitely have plenty of black mangroves left to do anyways. So we should probably get around to doing that. But probably in a future episode. We kind of have a full episode already, so we'll save that for another time. It's kind of crazy just doing 2 trees and making an episode out of it, but I guess it worked out, so that's pretty cool. But we'll have more black mangroves all where the red wool is in this area, pretty much everywhere except maybe on that hill. Like I said, there might be a kind of different type of mangrove over there. But we're pretty much done with this episode. In the next episode, we'll probably get back to more like industrial projects. In the last episode, I talked a little bit about Expelfar's gold farm at the end of the episode. We have a storage system that we might build over there. We might add just more black mangroves to this swamp in the next episode. We'll see. But like I said, we'll probably end it here. So thank you guys all for watching, and God bless.